What's up, Team Diadem? We're back in the Courtside Sessions studio for another podcast episode. The podcast is designed for junior players, parents, and coaches, and today is going to be an extra special, fun episode. We have Emily Morgan, the CEO and founder of 821 Tennis, in the house today, and we're gonna kick it off right now. Emily, how are you feeling?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. So, Emily, what is 821 Tennis?
Ooh, great question. So to sum it up, it's a tennis, fitness, and lifestyle brand.
Okay.
That's really centered and focused on the adult tennis market. We realized that there was a large underserved market for adult tennis, especially like when you play in juniors and then you kind of migrate out. There's a huge gap market, and so moved to Miami, saw the opportunity, and that's kind of like the gist of who we are.
I love that. And we'll talk a little bit more about 821. But first, I want to learn about your tennis journey.
Yeah.
So where did that start for you? When did you start playing?
So I started when I was 2 years old. I started in Kingston, Jamaica. I moved to the States when I was about 7. And I love dance, was actually my first love.
Oh, really? What kind of dance?
I love ballet.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that helped with your tennis career too, right?
I don't know if it did, but but I can imagine, like, in terms of coordination.
Yeah, movement,
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
body control.
Yes. I think I started also when I was 2, and I also was a swimmer. And so for me, when I moved to the States, I had a choice to make, and so tennis ended up sticking. And so played a bit in juniors. I did actually a lot more team tennis growing up.
Oh, okay, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
What's that format like for you, and what was it like then and now and all that kind of stuff?
So I played, after kind of transitioning, I played throughout juniors, and then when I got to high school, I played volleyball. I just loved sports.
Okay.
And so I did play some team sports, and so there was an option through the USTA to play team tennis. And so that's actually how I got ranked. I played,
through the team tennis
Yeah,
tournaments.
through team tennis. Yeah, so you still play singles, you still play doubles, if that's an option that you choose, but pretty much you're on a team of like maybe 5 to 6 people, and you play through seasons. So that actually does exist. I don't know if a lot of people know that.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's out there still now.
Yeah.
USTA has it, and UTR also has junior
really?
team tennis
Oh,
too.
sweet.
Yeah, so you were doing that more than playing like USTA tournaments on the weekends and that kind of stuff, or was that all tied together?
It was like more of seasonality. So earlier in my career, it was a lot more individual tournaments. Yep. So I would say I didn't really get competitive until I was like maybe between 7 to 9. That was kind of the transition.
Yep.
9 really competitive up until maybe like 13, 14. And then when I hit like end of middle school into high school, it was more team tennis, because I think I enjoyed, because I played volleyball, so I enjoyed the team atmosphere more. So I kind of ventured into that.
Yeah, totally. And when you were playing junior team tennis and just junior tennis in general, what were your goals? Did you want to be a pro tennis player? Were you just doing it for fun? What was that mindset like for you?
Great question. So I think in the beginning, definitely I wanted to play in college when I was younger. That was a really big goal. As I got older, the reality kind of sunk in and said, okay, what is your commitment level towards the sport? I did want to go to an academy at one point. That was not feasible. So I had to kind of figure out, okay, what would make sense for both, like, who I wanted to be as, I didn't want to be pro.
Yep.
I didn't want to be a professional athlete, but I definitely enjoyed playing. So I don't think I honestly had a decision until my sophomore year of high school. Okay. I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. But yeah, I think the end goal was just to get to college and see where it would go from there.
I think that's awesome, because I know there's hundreds of thousands of junior tennis players across the country. There's probably around 15,000 that are really competitive, trying to play in college. So I think that it's a good point at that spot in their career, around freshman, sophomore year in high school, to start thinking about that. What are you going to do next with your game? And it sounded like college was the driving force for you, right?
Yeah, that was the focus. I think for pro, I loved the sport, but there was a lot that it came with.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't know if I wanted that as a full-time job, so.
Okay. And then, when you decided you wanted to go in on college, what was the recruiting process like for you? How did that whole thing unfold? For
sure. So I had my eyes, obviously, on some larger schools. That was more of the ideal situation. And then, I went to a few showcases, met with a lot of coaches, and then I kind of eventually realized I wanted almost like a backup plan, right? So if I didn't, end up going full ride to somewhere, what would I actually want to study, or what would I actually want to do? And so I actually knew what I wanted to kind of do. It's not what I do now, but do earlier in, I guess you could say, like your school years.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to go into a career that would eventually take me back to Jamaica. And so that to me, I thought was like law. So I said, okay, like human rights or political science, something along those lines, maybe a diplomat. So I wanted a school that would also be able to translate well for academics. So it wasn't just me getting on a scholarship and, you know, God forbid I got hurt, I would be stuck and I would hate my life or, you know, whatever it is.
And I think that is very mature and something like that people should be doing in their college search is considering things outside of tennis.
You have to.
How's the academics? How's the social life?
You have to.
The prospects after your college career. What's the career placement look like? All that sort of stuff. So I think it's great to hear that you were doing that as a young person.
Thank you. It was tough because your expectation when you're young is to be like go to UCLA or you know what I mean. But then you
I see the D1 or bust mindset a lot, and I think people don't realize that at some of the smaller schools, they're actually more competitive tennis and better academic, social stuff.
It's more well-rounded.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that's what the end result. I'm very happy with where I ended up going. I decided not to do D1 just in case I decided I didn't want to play halfway. I wouldn't have my scholarship tied. I ended up going to a school in Virginia called Christopher Newport, and our athletics was insane. So our basketball went to the Final Four for D3, soccer, lacrosse, like all of our sports all across the board were just stacked.
Yeah, tennis top 25, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we did really, really well. We were scrimmaging against D1 players and D1 schools, which for me, I had the experience. Like I got the D1 experience, but I didn't have to have my scholarship or whatever tied into the mix. I could still choose.
I think there's a lot of pressure too, comparatively from D3 to D1, even D2, when you're on scholarship, you're oftentimes like an employee, so it's when you're playing D3, it's more of, it's voluntary. You're volunteering basically, so
you're choosing it.
And it's more for the love of the game, I think at that level, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm really grateful that I chose that path because I know a lot of my friends that play Division I, and there's a lot that comes with it.
Oh, 100%.
Emotionally, there's a lot of cultural challenges. There's, the expectations, like it's really more about like the end goal. And for me, it was all about the process.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I would love to dive in and talk a little bit about your process. But before that, what made you choose Christopher Newport over some of the other Division III programs?
So their academics was amazing. So I knew that in terms of what I could gain from an academic standpoint, that they were really competitive. They were basically restructuring their whole tennis team.
Okay.
So their tennis team prior, I'm not as familiar with their history, but when we came in, we completely knocked it out of the park. Like we had one competitor that really just kept us where we were, but for the most part, nationally ranked. We traveled to California, we traveled to New York, we played a lot of really eclectic schools that we weren't just stuck in this a lot of the smaller D3 schools are private schools, right? So you don't know if you're going to be traveling, you don't know if you're going to have the same experience as if you were at the D1 school, right? So the way that they explained the experience to me and the potential, it really seemed more aligned for me. It was more of a well-rounded experience.
100%. And were you asking questions during that process? And if so, what were those type of questions that you were asking the coaches?
So I wanted to know their background. That was super interesting. My head coach was a psychology major in high school or college. And so I knew he understood the mentality side of it. And that was huge. I did a lot of research before meeting with the coaches on the school itself. So what were, my peers talking about when it came to these schools? Was it because it was like a clout type school, or was it a school with substance? And that was huge for me. So a lot of the questions that I would ask them was just kind of the expectations for us as players. I wouldn't say it was downplayed, but it was definitely more of a commitment once you actually, signed and you were committed. And it's the theoretical sign, like you signed, but you have a choice. My first year, I definitely had a rude awakening in a really good way. I think that honestly, that year changed my life.
Oh,
I would not be who I am.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What happened in that year that was so impactful?
It was crazy. So this is actually really, I think, important for a lot of people to know. When you're going to collegiate tennis, it is not an academy. And a lot of people think that it's the dream come true. You're going to be going to an academy, you're going to be getting drilled, and it's not like that at all. Not saying it's bad, but that is a different expectation that when we, like in juniors, we think that we're going to finally have the dream academy reality, and it's not true. So I had only child syndrome. Like I was like, like we're individuals. We've been playing this sport, you know, by ourselves our whole lives. And then you get to this level where everyone's good. Like you're not entitled to be number one. Like you've got to earn it. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough that I do believe that I was extremely talented, but the type of hard work you had to put in with the talent, it was next level. And so I had to make a decision. Like my first semester was literally life-changing. I showed up and kind of just, I had a little bit of an ego, and not on court per se, but I remember my coach had told me like I wasn't being team oriented, and I didn't even understand what that meant. I was like,
yeah, right? Because you've never really done that. You played junior team tennis, but it's still an individual sport, right? And at the college level, it's a team game. So
it is completely different. Mm-hmm. It is, you're cheering, like it's not quiet, like you're cheering people on.
It's an electric atmosphere.
It's amazing. Yeah. It really is amazing.
But it's an adjustment. It doesn't necessarily come to you naturally because you weren't doing it for years, like some of the other team sports.
15 years, you've never done this, and you walk on, and my coach tells me I'm not being team oriented. I go, what do you mean? Like, so I took a lot of things personally, but the truth was, you know, after that semester, I actually had to call my juniors coach. I called him.
Okay. That's good. Reach into your bag of resources, ask for help, that kind of stuff. That's very mature of you.
I had to, because I thought I was like, am I losing my mind? Like, what am I doing wrong here? And I didn't know what to do. Emotionally, it was super stressful. We also were all freshmen except for one. Oh, okay. I mean, this was a brand new team.
Like a rebuild.
Mm-hmm. So we were all in it together. And so there was not someone you could go to kind of explain,
like a leader on the team, a veteran player. Yeah.
That could explain. We had one, then she was a year above us, and she was still going through that with us. Mm-hmm. And I remember my coach, he gave it to me real. He goes, this is not an academy. Like, exactly, it's not an academy. Like, the expectation is a little bit different. You either, you know, play the game and I'm not a quitter. Yep. So I had to give myself a pep talk. And so I decided to commit to it, and I just, instead of going out and like, I just locked in. I completely changed gears and I locked in. And I remember like that was my real understanding of like working hard. Like we worked hard because we had our coach and juniors, but when you're pitted against other people and you're in the same space every single day, like 5 hours a day, plus you have all these other responsibilities, like a different you emerges. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm really grateful for, because I think, you know, that had a lot of grace in D3. and Division 1, it's kind of just like a sink or swim.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
I don't know if you would have had as much grace. Like I got it together very quickly, but in Division 1, there's a lot more responsibility and expectation that would have really made it really challenging to know if this was an aligned fit.
Totally.
I would have been biased. I'm getting paid with a scholarship. Mm-hmm. Like, is this really an aligned fit? But where I chose to go to school was really an aligned fit, because not only did I have an incredible experience from a growth perspective on court, you know, I double majored and double minored, so I was still able to gain a lot beyond the court, and it kind of all worked together. Like the work ethic started to translate off court, and it was
it's very like a symbiotic relationship where it's kind of like a snowball where you start rolling and then it just takes over, which is really cool to hear.
I transformed.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. Do you think that there's anything that junior players can do when they're preparing to transition to the college atmosphere that might help their game or make the transition a little smoother?
So there's a lot of new rules. So I don't even know what the new rules are today. I think connecting with, so we didn't have this when I was being recruited to my new team, talking to the current players on the team.
Yep, totally. I think that's a great point.
Super important. A lot of my friends in school were actually more the basketball players in the early years, and then tennis players now, like throughout the last 3 years. And I noticed like in basketball and soccer, like they came, they hung out with you, and we eventually had that as our team grew. Mm-hmm. But I think that that's super important. And that will really help you just to understand if like the energy itself is just a good for you, a good fit, or what you can bring to the table. It's not just about like what works for you. I think it's also what can you bring to this team to help elevate the team as a whole.
100%. And I think that's something that you can do in the recruiting process is ask the coach, can you give me a couple players' numbers so I can reach out to them?
And
or
connect with them.
If that doesn't work for you, maybe try to find them on Instagram, shoot them a DM. I find that players in college are really receptive to those sort of things. They want to help the younger juniors, and they want to help their team be the best they can be. So if you're a hot prospect, they're going to want to talk to you for sure.
For sure. And it also makes it more relatable. Like you're not, like you can get a gauge as to what a day in the life for you would be.
Exactly. From the player, not from the coach.
Exactly.
You know, from someone who's actually doing it, who's walking in those shoes. So
exactly.
I think that's awesome. And then it sounds like you really refined your process. We talked about that a little bit before during that first year in college.
Yeah.
What things were you doing differently as you kind of started getting that rolling?
So this is like what I'm currently actually facing in business. And this is actually a really big premise for our company's concept. And we can talk about that in a minute. But
totally.
What I began to understand, which I think a lot of team sports really resonate with, is just because you did great 100 days in a row, like you got to do great another 100 days after that.
I love that.
And that was a reality I had not lived in juniors, because in juniors, you show up, you train by yourself, you compete with whoever you're competing, scrimmage-wise, you know, with your coach. When you show up on, you know, match day or tournament weekend, it's you versus you, right?
Totally.
With that, you can have attitudes and get away with it, right? I never really had an attitude on court per se, as I know like the stigma of the sport, you know, we have. It was more like my mom got it. My mom got it from me. Like I was
in the car ride home.
Like I was like, leave me alone. Like it was so bad, and I was just super angry. And also, I have siblings, but with my mom, I grew up as an only child, so I had a little bit of only child syndrome. Like I was little in my own head, and for me, when I ended up realizing like I had a decision to make, we were all good, right? We were all the same year. We were all the same age. Everyone wants it. Doesn't matter if you're good. Like you have to outwork who you used to be. Like you've outgrown that person. And so what I realized for the next 3 years is I just kept focused. Even on the good days, like I wouldn't be super excited and say, okay, that was a win. Like that was a win, but like, okay, keep it going. Like every single day you reset.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that in tennis, that's such a like up and down sport. If you can stay kind of in the middle, that'll help your game and everything. So that's cool to hear too.
Yeah, you have to reset and you have to continue to put the work in every single day. Like just because you're number 1, number 2, number 3 does not mean you should act like it. Like act like you're starting over every single day. Like that was, I think, what I would do. Like I was not number 1, but I remember like doubles was my thing, and I played all 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And it's very humbling to be able to go through all different like, you know, rankings.
Yeah, totally.
But then, you know, then you have a stacked team. You're grinding against each other. Like we worked really hard. Like we really worked really hard. Then you'd go play teams in California, and it was great because we crushed some and we got destroyed by others. And I love that. I love that competition. But it was just, I don't know, my work ethic changed. It
sounds like your attitude changed too. Your mental side, the way that you were approaching the daily work.
The process.
Yeah, the process, exactly.
The process was everything. I think that's the best summary. Like the process, my understanding of the process changed completely. Like it was more high performance. Like juniors is amazing, but when it doesn't matter until you're like in it with the like other people who are also in it, and you really have to go toe to toe and differentiate yourself. And not out of competition, but out of you becoming better, like within your journey.
100%. And it sounds like a lot of those lessons and the process that you developed and everything, you're able to apply to your business now.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about that a little bit, because I think that is one of the greatest benefits for kids playing junior tennis is in college tennis. The lessons that you learn, you're able to apply to your real life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Thanks for listening to this episode. As a special thank you, we want to give you 25% off all our junior rackets. That's our 19, our 21, and our 23 inches, as well as our 25 and 26-inch junior rackets. They're really high-quality frames. They're graphite, and they're great for high-performance players. If you use CSSJR at checkout at diademsports.com, you'll be able to get 25% off. Again, That's CSSJR for 25% off all of our junior rackets at diademsports.com.
Oh my God. So I actually told someone recently, I said, I have not had to go through this type of rebirth since my freshman year. And I go, the only reason I know that there's, a light at the end of the tunnel is because I've done it before. And with business, it is so hard because there's no blueprint. You're creating the blueprint. And so you have no idea what the outcome is. You have a vision, but you've got to detach. And that was what it was for me in tennis. Like, I did not know if I was ever going to be number one. I had no clue. All I knew is that I had to show up every single day and like put the work in.
Yep.
You don't know what the outcome, but the outcome was incredible. And like, I gained so much from collegiate tennis and my resiliency. When they say resiliency, how do I phrase this? Okay. It's being able to be super comfortable with that little discomfort you feel in your chest.
Yeah, totally.
And not panic and stop. And that's what I think college tennis really had taught me. You are so uncomfortable, you're exhausted. Yes, listen to your body, but how do you push just like 1% more?
Just a little bit more every day.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
That's, I think, one of the biggest skill sets that, like, honestly, it's funny because, tennis is tough. It's a really tough sport, especially as a kid. And, we have, good and bad moments, but it really has helped me to become who I am today. And I never thought I'd ever like say that or ever even be back into the sport. Like, I was like, all right, we're good. Like, that season of my life is over. But actually the premise of our business and what we're focused on doing is applying a lot of those process tool sets or those tennis mentalities to our company because we're focused on this adult market. And one thing we realized is I had a client that actually like it dinged on me one day was it was relevant to them because they could understand like I guess therapy to some extent through tennis or they could understand life through tennis.
Yeah, totally.
The analogies, for example, don't overgrip on your racket. You play best when you're relaxed, you play best when you're having fun. You play best when all you have control of is your prep and then you just execute. That's literally life. And so we realized that this sport was so synonymous to life that we could actually help change people's lives by presenting it in a different package. It wasn't just about competition. It was actually about how can you utilize this as a tool? This is a conduit. This is helping you to apply resilience to your everyday life, learning something new to your everyday life, thinking about life a little bit more strategically. And so that's, I think, honestly, like that's the premise of our business model. And that would be, I think, the biggest response.
I love that. I think the power of sport and what it can do off the courts, off the fields and all that stuff is really what it's all about. So it's very cool to hear that you kind of encapsulated that in this South Florida, Miami market with all these adults. I'd love to go back to the beginning of 821 tennis and what was kind of like the inception, the aha that made you notice this gap and make you want to fill it? What was that like at the beginning?
So my career full-time as well as this is real estate development.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about a little bit about that. So you're developing real estate.
Yes.
That's what you're doing after college. That's what you're in on?
I ended up working for a construction company after college. I fell in love with it as an intern. And originally I was supposed to go down the diplomacy route, the human rights route.
Yep.
I got accepted to the Peace Corps my senior year, but I also got this offer letter to work for this company I loved that I interned for the same week. And I was offered to go do youth development for 2 years. And then, my idea was to come back, do law, and then a career that would take me back to Jamaica eventually. That's kind of what I wanted. I ended up taking the job for the home builder because I said, okay, it's not a very common skill set for someone just to learn how to build a house. And I loved it. Like, I thought it was just so fun. So I ended up building houses for 4 years. I did land development for about a year. And then I finished my master's, was heading into a completely different direction. I moved to Miami to help our company build up a new division. And I needed tennis back. I picked it up like maybe a year after leaving, and I just needed an outlet. Yeah,
totally. I think that's I think a lot of juniors, a lot of parents can resonate with this too, is that tennis is a great outlet for kind of like blow off some steam, relax, like get out there, stay fit, stay exercise, active. So cool to hear that you came back to tennis.
I did. I didn't think I would, I'll be honest. I burnt out. I did not think I would. But I couldn't really find anything that was as high performance as like college.
Yep.
And I found that interesting. And I was like, okay. So in DC or in Northern Virginia where I lived, I hit with my coach or I'd go to his clinics, honestly. Like his junior clinics were great. then I moved here. I didn't have my coach. I didn't have my uncle or, whoever I was hitting with. And I was so confused. Mm-hmm. Miami and California are the largest tennis hubs in the United States of America. Massive. Huge. Yeah. And I could not find a clinic that was either like consistent enough for what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And finding a tennis coach or finding a tennis program, it's like therapy, right? You're trial and error.
Yeah, you're with all bouncing around, trying to find a good fit.
Yeah, like I don't have time for that. Like I was trying apps and I was like, there's nothing consistent in this market. Mm-hmm. I started doing a little research. This is when I was still working for my company. And I said, I don't really want to work for someone because I think the business models are really old. Like they haven't evolved, just like construction. Like it was very archaic. And as a collegiate athlete, we had a different experience. Like we understood energy. Yeah. Energy was power.
It's huge.
Huge. We understand team-oriented. We understand mindset. So it's not recreational for us. It's way more. And it has a way more, like there's more fun experience.
Yeah, I think the social component of everything that you're building is really cool. And I'm sure we'll touch on some of those like fun programs and everything you built in. But I think that's awesome.
Thank you. No, it's this one great experiment. It's one great experiment. But yeah, I basically just started, I realized that it was February 2021. I moved in 2020, August 2020.
Right before COVID, huh?
Yeah, right around that time. And our industry didn't stop. Construction was still going and I burnt out. There was a lot that I was trying to manage. I was 23 or 24 and I was running with it was just chaos. Like there was just a lot. Uh-huh. And I needed an outlet. I needed to get back to tennis and I couldn't find it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, how could I not find tennis court in every block? Like,
yeah, everywhere. There's tennis courts everywhere. But you couldn't find that level of competition, a program to be a part of, that sort of stuff. So
it was super odd to me. And so I fought it. I fought the idea. I said, okay, like if I'm gonna do something, like we'll hold off, like, and the idea kept coming back and I go, I'm not building a tennis company. Like this is not what we're doing. We're not doing it because I knew how much work it would take. I knew that the actual issue with the industry is, the sport is so lucrative that it hasn't been forced to evolve.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I've never really thought about that. Yeah,
people make money, and the scalability comes from a coach. No, like not the non-scalability comes from a coach running the show.
Yep.
So there is not consistency in the market because every single club does something completely different. There's no Barry's boot camp of tennis. There's no Soul Cycle of tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
You walk in, you know what you're gonna get, you leave.
Would you describe 821 as a Soul Cycle?
That's
of
like
tennis?
We're heading in the direction of different operations model.
I love that. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, like the country club model, it's effective and there's a market for that. But there's a large missing
and that's component. Been around for hundreds of years,
exactly.
And then I think that when you look at the industry for fitness and all that kind of stuff, those like Orange Theory and the F45s, those are all popping up more modern ways of doing that. So it's cool to hear that 821 is sort of going in that direction in like a modern
tennis company.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. That was, I made a deal with God. I said, I'm not doing this unless we do it in a way that I would participate.
Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of building it out as if it's for you.
Correct.
Okay. I like that.
And I would not, I don't enjoy going to like the be quiet. Cause when I show up on court, like we're playing music. But there's a lot of people in this industry that are very hurt when you play music on court. Even though you've been playing your whole life, you're not there messing around, you're grinding. But there's a seriousness that there's a lightheartedness to the sport that you actually play a lot better when you are focused, but there's some energy. We've seen it. 4 years of collegiate tennis, we've seen it.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that's something that also resonates with younger people a little bit more, especially people that have played collegiate tennis recently. Because in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of those programs have taken a more play music at practice approach, make it a little bit lighter.
Yes.
So we're kind of, in our generation, used to that atmosphere.
Correct.
Whereas in the past, that didn't really exist,
It was like
frowned upon.
It feels like it's illegal.
Yes, exactly.
I got in trouble the other day. I was going to this facility for, I don't know, since like January. I have a hitting partner. We're hitting. We've been playing music light. We're not disruptive. Like this is something that we can hear.
Yeah.
Right? And on week 8, there's been complaints. There's no one next to us. There's a clinic, 8 courts that way. And there's maybe a private once in a while. and we are no longer allowed to play music. I go, I'm very grateful I'm doing what I'm doing because we're 100% on a mission to change it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Change the culture of tennis, which is cool.
It's honestly wild to me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that are listening that probably hate
or,
what you're saying.
Or you're just
they
like,
love it.
no, no. Some are either like, no, or look, I think the market is gigantic. Like we looked at the stats when we started the company, and this is the statistics, right? There's 1 billion tennis fans globally.
Yep, okay? Across the world.
Across the world. There's about 22 going on 23 million in the US.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's like 1.9 in the state of Florida alone. Okay? Out of that market, there's roughly 25 to 30 that are juniors.
Percent.
Sorry, yeah, not people.
Yeah.
Percentage. So you're telling me out of 1 billion people, there's about, let's say 60. Let's not take the whole 70%, right? There's about 60% of that market is severely underserved.
Yeah, totally.
So we don't need all 60%. We just, there's a market for us, and it's a large gap. It's a large gap. We've been playing competitively for 20, 25 years, and then all of a sudden we stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's no place for us. There's a lot of collegiate tennis players that this is a common issue.
100%. Well, let's talk a little bit about what the 821 tennis programs are, what that looks like, so people can kind of have an understanding of this cool social tennis club that you're building.
Thank you. So 821, we are really focused on mind-body community. Those are our pillars. So we say we're a lifestyle brand because wellness is a component, but we're not a wellness brand. Gotcha. Just because once in a while we want tequila and tennis.
Yeah.
Okay? So we've got to balance it out. And so mind-body tennis, just because for me, like growth is super important. So anything having to do with you being able to understand yourself more is integrated in our programming. So an example for that is like we have something called a sweat and flow. So it's a tennis and yoga class, which is
I love that. I'm a big yoga guy, so that's cool.
And it's not a new concept per se, but it's how can we make it energetic in our way, right? How can we connect it in our way? So tennis and yoga, I know there's a lot more advocates for the combination because just yoga and athletes in general is so important.
Yeah, great for mindset. And then all the you get all the body, breathing, those sort of things.
Oh my gosh.
But what can do for your mind is crazy. Yeah, breath work's huge.
Yes. And it really is very, I mean, the results on performance is incredible. And that's why I love my head coach. He was a psychology major, and he actually, I think he introduced me to meditation. I mean, I fell asleep the first time, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But it took me 4 years to finally get into a rhythm. Like by my senior year, I finally had some sort of
mindfulness practice that you were working on.
And it was effective. And that's when we realized, okay, so tennis is the conduit. How can we start exposing our market to all these different wellness principles? And
wow, that's awesome.
We started with, we winged it. Like this was like a year of winging it. Like we just experimented and it sold out. We were like, okay, there's something there. There's a curiosity. We did it again. Okay. We did it again. And I think we did about 8 sessions last year. And it was super, super cool because every person that's a yogi, we made it approachable for them to come try it.
Yeah, so you got the yoga market to come try tennis, and you got the tennis market to come try yoga.
To be still.
And
chill.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Breathe.
So important.
It was amazing. And so we had, some people go up to our yoga ambassador and want to now work with her. And that's the goal on the mind-body side, is we don't need to master yoga. Like I'm not going to get yoga certified. That's not my goal. I think the people who are really good at what they do need to be that's their purpose.
Yeah, totally.
But we basically just said, how can we find different ways to integrate? We still wanted to always tie around the tennis just because the sport is so eclectic. Like, we can touch on so many things, but how can we find different wellness practices, different fitness practices? It can be Pilates. It can be just a breathwork class. We're doing a workshop this weekend with movement and mobility. So
awesome.
We have an ambassador that he's able to basically help you realign for mobility purposes. Like it's like movement therapy without touching you. You use your body to reset
yourself. Okay, very cool.
So it's things that we would be exposed to at a high performance collegiate level or a professional level that the masses don't have access to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So creating like workshops around that and creating weekly classes around that. So that's our mind body sector.
Okay. What are the other sectors?
The other sector is, so the tennis is our biggest focus, right? I'm a technique freak. So we started to really grow a large market just from the fundamentals, and then that's progressed quite a bit since. And we run our classes like workshops. So we can hold a sizable amount of people because we do fundamentals like workshops. So it's all about, so I study like neuroscience once in a while,
cool.
right?
Yeah, I'm into that. So that's awesome.
I love it. I think rewiring your brain and really understanding that, like, I'm not even going to go down a tangent on that, but I understand a lot of the psychological aspects of just anything in general, not just sports, but just how to restructure your perspective and conditional, like pretty much let's create new neural connections in your brain.
Yeah,
right?
every day you can do that and just
rewire.
And it's a daily thing that you really have to focus on to kind of like
repetition
over time. Yeah.
And also like clearing limiting beliefs, right?
Yes, so important. Yeah, we could probably do a whole podcast just on that stuff.
I know, I'm like, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, we'll run it back.
I would love that. But I decided to start applying that to how we taught.
Okay.
And it was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
So we would, literally have a class of 10 people, and that's a lot for tennis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because it was we broke it down so that they understood the why.
Yes.
And they could understand why they were moving the way they were moving. And then we repeated it in a certain way that it was programming them so that your nervous system doesn't panic.
Yeah, definitely.
You ease into this new skill set.
Yeah, and I think any coaches listening right now too can kind of
adopt
a little bit of this thought process that you've applied here.
And I learned that because I was on the other end of it, where it was forced.
Mm-hmm.
So I am very sensitive to energy, and I understood when a coach didn't understand why you were feeling the way you were.
Yes.
Or why something wasn't working, because let's recalibrate. Can we recalibrate instead of forcing through something that's not working?
Mm-hmm. I think that's very important. It's cool to hear that you guys are doing that at
Yeah.
AT1.
I think that was an accident. Like it kind of just progressed itself, and we realized, wait, like this is applicable to what we're doing, and that's kind of how the tennis side of the business is, and it's really focused on just like growing your skill set.
Mm-hmm. So we have the tennis, the mind body,
and then we have the community.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool that you guys do a lot of activities and things. So tell me all about that.
I got so lucky. That's all I have to say. I got so lucky because it was an accident as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
I did not intentionally go out to build a community because we're not used to that in tennis, right? The yogis are used to community. Everyone in the wellness space is used to community, but we're really not. Like we have a community, but it's more about like, okay, like it's like a competitiveness.
Yeah, and it's an individual sport at the end of the day, really.
Right.
And not that people build communities within the tennis community.
Right, but the community itself isn't
as inclusive and inviting and that kind of stuff.
That's the word right there, right? And so we basically just like juniors, when you go to clinics with the same people, you end up becoming friends. Mm-hmm. The difference though in juniors is your coach isn't focused on whether or not you guys are treating each other well always.
100%.
It's just, are you showing up? Are you doing the work? Are you performing? Are you executing? Are you creating results? We have a portion of that as our focus. It's like a third to a half. Mm-hmm. The other half is like how you show up for your peers, how you show up for each other, how you show up for yourself. And we talk to our players that way, and it ended up attracting like-minded people who now the culture, when you show up, even if you miss 30 balls, like they will still cheer you on. Mm-hmm. And not the cheer you on that's like fake, like, oh, no, it's okay, take your time, try again. Because that's how we're treating them. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And so the community was an accident because people just started bonding, and I didn't even know that. I didn't understand it. I was like, wait, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, you guys want to hang out with each other? All that kind of stuff?
When they asked me to do these, like we started events kind of on our own after we did an event at Miami Open. We loved it. But then we realized they wanted to keep hanging out and bonding over tennis. Like we realized there was a huge opportunity to pour more into that. Mm-hmm. And so now there's a whole pillar of the company focused on like the community, and we 7X the business. It was insane. We 7X the business to like 560 people.
Wow.
And like 200 of them are in a group chat.
Oh, so, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, like, very cool.
We're super excited, and hopefully we can get more, like now we're trying to create more of a safer space where now it's not just a group chat about what's going on with us, but like how can we start to now create more community where, okay, all the entrepreneurs.
That are, like make subgroups of your group.
Exactly.
Very cool, yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
This is life, right? Mm-hmm. So all the entrepreneurs that are in our community, how do you guys connect? How do we create a platform for you? Everyone in tech.
Because it's in Miami, so there's a lot of young professionals that are working in the industries and stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's very diverse, and that's my curiosity. I actually really love knowing what people love and like their purpose. They don't know their purpose per se, but I love helping to like ask those questions. So the community pillar is super cool to kind of, that's not something that will ever be defined. I think it'll always be this evolving.
Yeah, just keep getting better and better as you learn how to serve your community better, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the type of like events and community building stuff that you guys do off the court?
Yeah. So we're super excited. We're doing one actually coming up. I think you guys are a part of it. And so we are doing a Joy Beach, like beach tennis kickoff.
Oh, awesome.
For Miami Open. And so that's going to be a mixer. So it's actually one of our very first events where you don't necessarily have to dress up to play. You can actually just come and hang out and talk to people. There's so many amazing people doing incredible things. Like, it's insane. And we want to spotlight those people, but let's just get them in the same room to hang out and talk, right? So this is not maxed where it has to be like 20 or 30 people for a court or 2 courts. Now it's like, okay, there's no tennis court. There's a beach tennis court. So then we're going to kind of structure a mixer around it. It's in partnership with Joy Beach. So we're super excited. That's one that's coming up. And that's going to be, I think, our first off court. Actually, no, that's not true. We went to Spain last year, and that was a cool.
There's some
that was amazing.
Yeah, you guys are doing some international travel and things like that. So
that was amazing.
Spain. What other places are you guys going to or have gone to?
So Mallorca was amazing. So we have a partnership with the Ralph Nadal Tennis Academy, and that was sick because it was a combo of fall camp, but also retreat. So you grind it for the first 3-4 days, and then we did like a boat tour. Winery visit. So it's just integrating life and bonding. And that was actually one of the most powerful trips I've ever taken in my life. Just based on just being able to hang out with people in a different setting.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to go back again this year, which we're super excited. We have some partnerships coming up. I can't announce them yet. But we are, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I'm very much a big thinker. I have a board now to reel me in, but
that's great.
We're not afraid to make this a global thing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. What's kind of the next evolution 821 tennis? Where do you see this ending up in 5, 10, 15 years? You know?
Yeah, great question. Hopefully I don't give too much away, but
yeah,
at this point, so my real estate background is coming back around. Our board, we're working on a project to make, like a little bit more permanent homes in certain areas. And
that's awesome.
We definitely want it to be in more than one city. And
so expand outside of Miami.
For sure.
Any particular markets you look at?
Yeah.
Like Atlanta,
I'm like,
maybe?
Do I want to tell
like
you? Okay, so obviously like the DC area.
Because you have a relationship. They call it Nova up there.
Thank you.
For everyone who doesn't know.
Thank you. Yes.
I learned that recently. That's an area of America.
Yes.
A lot of good tennis up there too.
There's a lot of good tennis. Like the high school tennis put some of my not my college team, but some college teams to shame.
Oh, 100%.
Oh my God. Like the high school tennis players there were insane.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to share the other 2 markets.
Okay, that's fair.
Just because we're trying to get in there and win, our time.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone hovering those markets.
Exactly. No, I love that.
But DC is definitely on the list just because I know people personally who would love this. I know many people like all over the place that would love this. We have members that are actually in different cities, and they come to us when they're in town.
Oh, that's very cool.
With us. Yeah.
Probably a lot of the like snowbird people that live up north in the summer and come down for the winter.
Just visitors too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like we have a really close friend now that she lives in Chicago, and every time she comes here, she's like anxious to get back to Miami.
Pop out.
She doesn't have this in Chicago.
Up there.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool, and I'm excited to see everything that 821 does you accomplish in the next few years. And I'm sure we could stay here and hang out and talk more tennis, talk more life for hours, but we need to wrap it up. So
love it.
I'm very thankful that Emily was able to sit down in our Courtside Sessions studio, talk 821, talk tennis, talk life. We'll be back with more Courtside Sessions episodes. As always, big thank you to our production team here. Feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, send this to people. Where can we find 821tennis.com?
.com and Instagram.
Bang. Hit them up, guys.
Boom.
All right, we'll be back soon enough with more Courtside Sessions episodes.